What is up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. I'm PWTorch Assistant Editor Zack Heydorn here for a quick discussion, chat, if you will, on this week's episode of AEW Dynamite in my backyard here in Hoffman Estates. It's they say Chicago, CM Punk said Chicago a lot today at the show, but it technically is not Chicago. But hey, I digress. I'm from the suburbs originally, and but Chicago it is. No harm, no foul. But thanks for click and play here. Busy week in professional wrestling in general. Busy week of professional wrestling here in Chicago too. And so I'm going to try to give as many reports coming out of the live events that I've been going to, with analysis and with detail and with results where applicable, just about everything going on this week. And it'll be a busy one. So to run it down real quick, first of all, once again, thanks for joining me. And also subscribe to the PWTorch YouTube channel. We've got a great lineup of content coming at you all week long from this point on. Just to give some perspective on that, you're watching this right now. Tyler Sage has a really cool interview up on the channel with Lenny Leonard, legendary professional wrestling announcer. That's up that you guys can check out. We'll have our fireside chat up as usual. Friday, I'll have another recap, just like I'm about to do here with AEW Rampage. I forgot Thursday. Local promotion, AAW here in Chicago is running one of their biggest shows of the year. So I'll be in attendance for that. We'll break that down after the fact. Saturday, we'll do a torch cast for Clash at the Castle. And then, of course, all pay-per-view coverage coming up on Sunday for All Out. There's an NXT Worlds Collide event on Sunday. We'll be covering that. And then kind of a cool thing on Saturday, the Wrestling Showcase is going to be a special tournament event in right near where the AEW All Out pay-per-view will be. And so I'll be in attendance there too. And hopefully we'll snag some interviews with some talents and a host of other things. But as you can see, lots and lots of stuff happening here on the PWTorch YouTube channel this week. So subscribe, tell a friend. We very much would appreciate it. But enough of that. Let's get to the task at hand here and talk AEW Dynamite this week. The go home Dynamite for the All Out pay-per-view event, which is coming up this Sunday. I think there was a lot of, obviously, I'm not breaking any news saying that there's a lot of question marks going into the show this week. The big one being what's going to be the main event, what's going to be the world title match. And we have that question answered. CM Punk versus John Moxley 2. They got there. And I think it was too cute. I think you could have told a very, very similar story. Not identical, because you don't have the minute or 2 minute loss for Punk, but pretty darn close too, without the match last week. And I think there would be more buzz for the match if Sunday was the first time. But I digress, because you know what? They got there. It made sense. A little bit rushed, but I think overall it made sense. It's not how I would have done it. I think you could have milked it more. I think you could have got people more excited. But clearly they wanted to have CM Punk wrestling for the championship and winning the championship back in Chicago. I think that's a major takeaway here, while legitimizing John Moxley's title reign too. And this is kind of like the best of both worlds. I think if you're Tony Khan, you look back and go, okay, the story was sound, but man, let's spread this across a month rather than across 2 weeks, right? This felt like the last season of Game of Thrones, just everything crammed together right at the end. Okay, and then it's over. Similar feel there. But in the end, they got there. It is a big match, and I thought tonight in the building was really interesting. last week you had a Cleveland audience that was booing CM Punk. This week you had an audience that was booing John Moxley. And I want to start with John Moxley. That entrance live today, sitting in there, watching the people react to him. And man, there's just such a natural connection to John Moxley. I know they booed him, 2 minutes after he did his entrance, right? I get it. But the entrance itself, there's something there. There's a special relationship that Moxley has with the audience. It's not just Chicago. And Moxley just looked like a damn star. I mean, there's no two ways about it. He looked like a damn star out there and carried himself that way and walked to the ring with a chip on his shoulder and an edge to him. But in a way that told you this is the top guy. Like if you were flipping through the channels, people still do that. But if you're just kind of figuring out what you want to watch and you saw this AEW thing and you watched that entrance, you know right away that John Moxley is the top guy in AEW. I mean, that's just the perception that it was. And even though the audience booed him, they reacted for that top star presence. So that's the first big takeaway that I had live in the building, which is just John Moxley. Wow. Like a pretty big turnaround from where he was this time last year. And it's not to say that he wasn't over then and he wasn't a big star then. He was. But this is a new level for John Moxley, and seeing that in person, live and in living color, and being able to watch the reaction of the audience was really, really interesting. And then that's all before the promo, right? That's before he even starts talking. And then he picked up that mic, booze raining in, and I thought what he was able to accomplish on the mic was pretty spectacular given the circumstances. He had an audience booing him for the most part. There was a scattering of cheers for sure, but it was a CM Punk crowd. Obviously, it's Chicago. But Moxley finessed the way he handled that reaction. Finessed it exactly where it needed to go in that, he acknowledged it outright. He just said, hey, I know that's your boy, but what happened last week? I kicked his butt. I'm paraphrasing, but you get the idea. So he acknowledged those boos and soaked them in, took them in, reacted to them, but it didn't throw him off and it didn't change kind of his regular persona. Like he didn't have to flip a switch and now start cutting this heel promo. He just was himself, addressed the elephant in the room, which is the booing audience, and then moved on. And then by the end, he still kind of had that audience in the palm of his hand, even though they may not want to admit it. But really what he maintained is that status as the top guy, or as a top guy. Because by the end, as I said, he still had the people in the palm of his hand right there. He had them, and not in a way that he had him, but not in a way that was heelish in nature. It was kind of like, yeah, we want to see CM Punk win, but John Moxley respect. And I thought he balanced that really nicely. And it was like a pro's pro from a promo perspective, because you gotta, in order to do that live in the ring in front of 1 million people watching at home, you have to have confidence in who you are, not just as a performer, but as a character too. And I think when you watch John Moxley, I wrote about this last week for PWTorch.com, John Moxley knows who he is. He knows his character to a T. He knows how his character would react in any situation, and he can apply that to any situation. Tonight, live in that building, you got to see him do that right there, right then and there. I thought that was pretty cool, especially as the resident, art guy of the Torch. You got to see an artist in the ring work his magic, and it was Very, very effective. Now, let's pivot to CM Punk, because biggest reaction of the night, bar none. The crowd wanted to see Punk early, when Moxley was in the ring. And then he came out middle of the show, which I think surprised some people, me included. I figured if they're going to go and pay off that story of who's going to sign the contract or not, they'd wait till the end of the show, and then Punk would come out and whatever angle would happen would happen. This was middle of the show, so it was a surprise, and the crowd reacted that way. I think if I'm Tony Khan, hearing that live response, I'm maybe putting that segment in a different position. Just the response was loud, and it was the loudest of the night for sure. But it was coming back from a commercial break. Punk wasn't promoted ahead of time to okay, I'm going to talk at this moment. And so you had people up out of their seats, buying concessions, taking a bathroom break, grabbing a beer, and so I don't know that you had the universal audience's attention in that building at that moment, because of just the timing of it. Once the music hit, though, man, Pop City, Punk came out, and he just eviscerated a heckler. If you didn't catch what happened there, he just totally just eviscerated a heckler, talking about his sex life, some of the heckler's sex life or lack thereof, and that was kind of a weird start to the promo, especially where it went. I will say this, and I'm not sure what it says about Chicago as an audience, but man, they were behind that Punk eviscerating that guy, fully behind it, babyface reaction all the way. A little weird, especially given where the promo was going to go. I digress. It took a while for Punk to get rolling from a promo perspective, and to kind of reel in that audience, right? They were there. I think at the beginning, the perception I got from being in the building was that audience wanted to hear Punk just come out and say, you know what? Bad night at the office last week. I'm going after the title. Where's that damn contract? And just be fired up right out of the beginning. And they went a different direction, clearly, with Punk kind of being stoic and slow moving and unsure of himself, and there's showing a lot of doubt. They went that angle instead. And I think it worked in the end, clearly, but it took a while for him to set that hook, right? Ace Steel was such a pivotal part of that promo. I don't know. I really don't think it gets over as well as it did tonight in the building if Ace Steel doesn't kind of have that home run performance. That's a big moment. Ace Steel is not a guy who is on TV regularly. He's not cutting promos regularly. He just is not asked to do those things. And here you've got a big, big main event on the line. And it's how people perceive that main event was how they delivered in that moment and how they sold that match. And Ace Steel sold the hell out of that thing. And then I think CM Punk played off of it nice on the back end. So really well done there. The parade through the crowd, that got over huge. And that was such a cool visual. I was on the opposite side of the arena from where Punk was, kind of almost on a diagonal. So I got to see kind of the wide shot of it all. And it was really kind of just a cool moment. I'm looking forward to watching it back, on TV to see what that looked like. But in the building, it universally got over. I mean, it was an over angle, and I think it was considered a hot match. By the time all things were said and done, they got to where they needed to go. Yeah, and then you got Moxley later on. More booze, probably more booze the second time than the first time even. But I like that. I like circling back on that. You know, the one thing I maybe would have wanted to see tonight live is them face to face, you know, in the ring or backstage or something. But it's a small, little, minute detail, probably a personal preference thing more than anything. But Moxley coming back out and like addressing Punk again, nice touch, Tony Khan. It just added a little bit of heat to that match, made the match feel like a little bit of a bigger deal. Okay, let's just kind of keep going here. Trying to get some reactions on some things. All right, W. Morrissey, that guy is freaking huge in real life, and this is coming from somebody who saw, you know, Omos live at the Allstate Arena in Chicago at Rosemont a handful of months ago. That guy's, I mean, obviously that guy's huge too, but Morrissey, my goodness, he is impressive from a size perspective. And, you know, that got over big tonight in the building. Like, people knew who he was, people reacted that way, but what really kind of pushed it over the edge in terms of looking at him and going, wow, that guy is important, was the work that he did in the ring. He was vicious in the ring. Like the choke slam, oh man, it felt like it cracked one of the boards that the ring is made of. Like, it was a big time like choke slam. And I think that really helped make everything with that presentation consistent. You know, you got the look, and then you also got the destructive force on the other side of things. That got over in a really big way. Okay, things that didn't work. The Wardlow FTR thing, a little bizarre. I mean, it was fine, you know, but it just, I don't think had any momentum or any juice, which is so bizarre because in the building, the whole audience loved FTR. I'd say that that's probably the third loudest babyface pop was for FTR. And yet here they are in this weird 6-man tag. It just, that type of response, when you're getting that type of reaction live, and that audience today loved FTR, you got to feed that. You have to feed that. You have to feed it more momentum, even if it's not part of the plan. You got to feed it. I've said it week in and week out on the Fireside Chat with Tyler. You can check it out right now on the channel. You don't get that momentum all the time. Some acts may never get that kind of momentum, and you got to go with it. And this is Tony Khan not going with it. And the reason I bring it up is because of that reaction in the building tonight. Like, it's one thing to just think it, you know, it's one thing to just think it and go, all right, well, I like FTR, so darn it, we got to push FTR. Everybody has their favorites, but it doesn't always work that way in terms of, hey, push my favorite now. You have to be able to corroborate that across lots of people. And tonight, that audience just loved those guys. Like, that was all the evidence that you need to push them. And the fact that they're kind of tucked away in this 6-man with Wardlow, you know, it's like, okay, it's a cool match, I guess, but it's not a meaningful match. It's not a match or a program with any context or any real, like, there's just nothing there. There's nothing there to grab onto from an investment standpoint. So a miss as far as that goes. Main event, not a miss. and not much was an outright miss, but this was not a miss at all. Man, great main event. Crowd ate it up. They were in the whole darn time. Pop big for the Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay stuff. I got the sense watching that audience watch the match that there was enough people in that building that did know about the history that Ospreay and Omega have, the recent history that they have together in terms of butting heads. So when they squared off and when they kind of worked with each other in this match, that got a really, really strong reaction from the audience. And then just the pace at which the match was worked from the beginning to the end. Some really spectacular stuff with the Young Bucks. Kenny Omega showing more this week than he did 2 weeks ago. Like, it was a really good night at the office for all 6 of those guys. And the crowd was right there. The crowd was absolutely right there for it the whole way. You knew that, you didn't know, but you figured that the Elite would go over, right? Because they're setting it up. They're setting up the Elite against Dark Order, Hangman Page on the Dark Order side, and then, the Elite guys on the other side. Boom. That's your match. And this was a good step forward in that match. And I think it really got over live in the crowd. The other thing that I noticed about this match from a live perspective is just how much anticipation there was for it. When they flashed that graphic up on the screen, whereas like they're promoting it earlier in the night, and then they got the graphic up next, that graphic, big pop from that crowd every time. So it tells you, how, just the anticipation that AEW audiences have for these trios matches, I guess. And it was exciting. There's no question about it. It was exciting. It was athletic. It was fast paced. It was quick. It was unique. Some of it was emotional. I just wish it had a little more context. It seems like it's like a tornado match, so just call it that. Let's not try to make it something it's not. This isn't like matches that are chock full of psychology, but that's not what they're supposed to be. It doesn't seem like this is about action, and that this had that, and this Chicago audience appreciated that very, very much. So that kind of takes care of my overall, point by point notes of the night. But the broad kind of reveal that I have for everybody is, the event was not sold out. And now arena is not huge, and there were many pockets of seats that were unsold, which I was surprised to see. But given that it's a go home show, number one, it's CM Punk's hometown ish, number two, and you knew you had this big main event match, number three, and so surprised to see empty seats. The other thing I was probably more surprised about, definitely more surprised about, was the lack of energy in the audience. It was so bizarre in that way. The Chicago AEW crowds habitually have been like raucous crowds, where you've seen early on in AEW, especially obviously before the pandemic, and even after quote unquote, it's had a very party-esque feel to the crowd environment. That's been there at every AEW show I've attended in Chicago, from All In back in 2018 to tonight. I've seen most of them, and tonight did not have that party energy. Not even close. Yeah, it was very, very tempered in terms of energy. That's not to say that they didn't react. They did. Punk got a big reaction. Omega did, and whatever. That was there, but it didn't have the volume turned up on that. Which you've seen at AEW shows before, where you just get this kind of crazy hype, fun party atmosphere. That was not on display tonight. And so I'm really, really curious as to what the reaction will be from that audience once we get to Sunday. Because on Sunday, look, you'll have a lot of people in that pay-per-view audience will have seen Dynamite, will have attended Rampage perhaps, and attended Dynamite. Then possibly watch a hell of a lot of wrestling between Friday and Sunday night, because you've got Clash of the Castle, you've got GCW, you've got an NXT Worlds Collide show, and then a handful of different independent promotions that are running this weekend. That's a lot. And so, I'm really interested to see what the reaction is at All Out, and is that crowd back to like that, to being super hyped and super pumped up and bringing that party atmosphere to AEW shows, because that atmosphere set AEW apart from other promotions, WWE included, because they had that crowd reaction, and it's just that intensity was not there tonight, which really surprised me. And Chicago's gotten a lot of wrestling this year for sure. Forbidden Door. So there was a WWE pay-per-view here in June. Like it's a lot, and so with All Out kind of like being the end point of that for the year, I don't think there's any big Chicago shows after that. It'll be interesting to see how that stands out, and if that crowd is back to wanting to party in a big way. That's all I got for you today. Thanks so much for joining me. I do appreciate it. And hopefully you tune into my other reports coming up right here on YouTube. So subscribe, like this video. Again, tomorrow, Thursday, we'll be covering a AAW, this local Chicago promotion that I've been going to shows to for years. That we'll have a live report there. We'll also have the PWTorch Fireside Chat as usual on Thursday afternoon. Friday, we'll do some Rampage talk. Saturday, Torchcast watch along for Clash at the Castle. Later on, I'll be doing some reports on the Wrestling Showcase show. And then, of course, we've got Worlds Collide on Sunday, and then All Out. We are here for you, covering it all. Me, Tyler, and whoever else pops up here on the old YouTube channel. We're here for you. So do us a favor, just subscribe to the channel, like the videos, and tell a couple of people about us. So that'd be fantastic. Once again, thanks for joining me. I'm PWTorch Assistant Editor Zack Heydorn. We'll catch you guys next time.